Welcome, everybody. I'm Aldo Gandia, and with me is Cameron Worrell, former Chicago Bears football player, played with the Dolphins, what other team did you play with? One other NFL team, right?
I was with the Jets, got hurt, so I never actually played a regular season game, so I don't claim that organization. I'll stick with the Bears and the Dolphins.
There you go. There you go. Well, thanks very much for popping in. We want to talk a little football with you. We want to talk a little bit about the upcoming NFL draft, your football career, and then just talk some BS stuff at the end of our interview. So first of all, let's start with this upcoming NFL draft. What to you are the important storylines happening in this NFL draft that fans, particularly Chicago Bears fans, should be tuned into?
Yeah, I think just like if you look at the NFL overall, the importance of the quarterback position and, really your ability to win meaningful games, not just get into the playoffs, not just compete for a division title, but give yourself a real opportunity to win a Super Bowl, which I think is the goal of every organization, definitely the goal of an organization like the Chicago Bears, whose history speaks for itself, but the expectation is you need to win Super Bowls. That's what success is to the Bears organization. So I think just understanding that, and we saw it, and we'll get into it, I'm sure, the Bears move up to draft Mitch Trubisky because they identified him as the quarterback that could lead this organization and put them in position to win a Super Bowl. Obviously that didn't work out, but I think the metrics that are used to evaluate the positions in the NFL, there's all the other positions, and then there's the quarterback position. And I think you'll see this year, and you'll see for the foreseeable future, the importance of that position put on display, where somebody might be the 25th best prospect in the draft, but they go number 4 overall because they're a quarterback. I think Bears fans probably understand that as good as any fans out there, just with the quarterback history of the organization. But I don't think that's going to slow down. Don't think that's going to change. I think all the rules have allowed that to be that way. And if you're the NFL, your business is booming, and those quarterbacks are your stars. You're going to continue to protect those stars. So I don't think that dynamic is going to be any different, for a long time.
You said a lot there that I can select and pick questions, but I got to start with one that you said early on. It's all about winning Super Bowls. And doing shows here on the Barroom Network for passionate Chicago Bears fans, I see in the chat room tons and tons of frustrated fans blaming the McCaskey family, blaming Ted Phillips on the fact that this team has not been to the Super Bowl since you were last with the team and hasn't won a Super Bowl since 1985. What do you say to those fans? And do you tell them, listen, management really wants to win, or do you kind of nod and, almost agree?
I think there was probably a time where that sentiment was accurate. I think the McCaskey family, Virginia McCaskey, her father was George Halas, right? So the McCaskey family has been in control of the Chicago Bears for a long time. And the NFL over the last, 20 years, you've seen this dramatic growth in revenue and ability to maximize return if you are an owner of an organization. And I think the McCaskey family took them a little bit of time to, understand that and start to make decisions based on the current state of the NFL. But they've done that. They really have done that. And, I think I was right around the beginning of this kind of, organizational, reprogramming, so to speak, where they understood it's going to take money to win, and it's going to take investments in not only players, but facilities, other pieces in the organization. We might have to add some structural components to help us have success. But the McCaskeys have done that. They're passionate. They are passionate. I can tell you firsthand, Virginia McCaskey is passionate about the Chicago Bears winning football games, about the Chicago Bears. Number 1 probably on her list is winning her dad's trophy, the George Halas Trophy, which is the NFC Championship. But 1 and 1A is winning that Super Bowl title, because of the history of the organization her father built. So the McCaskey family, they want to win. I understand the frustration of Bears fans, especially historically, and looking at that, but that mindset has changed, and that all they want to do. And I think that's probably why Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy are still employed by the Chicago Bears, because they really feel like if they put some pieces in place, that this organization and how it's structured can have success. Now, whether we agree on that or disagree on that, that's kind of a separate conversation we can get into, but they definitely want to win. They definitely are trying everything in their power to win, even though sometimes, and I get it, it doesn't seem like it to Bears fans.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I totally agree. I mean, I've been following this team since 1968. That's how old I am. And I have a great passion for this team. And yeah, there have been some times where I've doubted, their dedication to winning Super Bowls. But it's indisputable in my mind that they desperately want to win, and they desperately want to win for Virginia. Now, like you said, we can debate, whether they've made the right calls, right trades, player selection, coach selection, so forth. We can debate that. And I think in a lot of instances, we would probably agree and say that was a bad decision. That was a bad decision, because they've had so many of them. But it is clear that the organization wants to win. So having said that, one of the things you said in your first comment is about building through the quarterback position. And I'm totally with you. Like you said, rules have changed. The game is a quarterback league now. So let's take a look at the top quarterbacks coming out of this draft. We know that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the first quarterback selected. There's no doubt about that. What have you seen on tape regarding Trevor Lawrence? What have you heard from people you trust in the business? How great of a quarterback can Trevor Lawrence become?
He can be a Hall of Famer. I mean, that's the ceiling for Trevor Lawrence, and he's kind of proven it all the way through his football life, really, as the number one recruit in the country, going to Clemson, winning a national championship, having so much success as the leader of that team and program, and then stepping right into being the number one pick. Now, this is just normal for Trevor Lawrence. He's used to being that guy. He's been that guy his entire football career, and every step of the way he has had success. And if anything tells you somebody's on that path, it's someone who's done it continually. And Trevor Lawrence is that person. So, I know a lot of people compare him to when Andrew Luck came out of Stanford, as far as being just as can't miss of a quarterback prospect as he possibly can have. Peyton Manning probably in that mode as well. But, people who have evaluated talent over the last 15 years, who I speak to, some of them didn't even put a grade on him, because it was wasted their time, because he's not going to be anywhere near where they select. But everybody who did take any sort of, look in depth of Trevor Lawrence, he was as good of a prospect as they've ever evaluated. And that says a lot, because there have been some, first ballot, no doubt Hall of Fame players in the last 15 years who have played on Sundays, and they consider him, at least coming out of college, the ceiling for him is as high as anybody they've ever seen.
Now, widely considered to be the number 2 guy to be selected in this draft is the quarterback out of BYU, Zach Wilson. We weren't even talking about him at this time last year as a big-time prospect for this upcoming draft. What have you seen and heard about Zach Wilson?
Yeah, just the skill set is really, really complete, as far as, what you're really looking for in a quarterback in today's NFL. We'll probably get into this conversation as well. I've gone, back and forth on Twitter with a few people. Just Zach Wilson is a guy who has all of those traits that you see win in today's NFL. Patrick Mahomes is probably the best example of this, but, Josh Allen has this to his, Aaron Rodgers has had this to his game for a long time. If everything breaks down, or if read 1, 2, 3 is not there, okay, what do you do next? How do you move in the pocket? How do you get yourself out of trouble? How do you extend plays? If you don't have the ability to do that, you are at a disadvantage offensively because you have so many quarterbacks who do possess that. And I think the Jets, I joked about not claiming the Jets at the beginning, but I think Joe Douglas has them on the right track. They get Robert Saleh in, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and everybody that I talk to does as well. They're on the right track, and seems like they've identified Zach Wilson as that guy. If we put a structure around him, he not only can have success in that structure, but he can have success outside of that structure. And I think when you look at the guys who have success today, those are the guys that continually pop up and, are on winning organizations, statistically, some of the best in the NFL, efficiency-wise, some of the best in the NFL. I think Zach Wilson is, it's definitely debatable. All of these quarterbacks are outstanding at the top. And you could pick a few things that each of them possesses that the other three don't possess, or the other four guys don't possess. But when you look at, all of them and Zach Wilson does have all of those qualities. And I assume they've done a ton of due diligence, and they know this guy's going to come in, he's going to lead, he's going to work. He's going to be a guy that we can rely on, because this is a tremendous, and I don't see the Jets drafting in the top 5 unless they trade up there, for a long time.
Now, a quarterback that a lot of people have been debating about recently over the last month or so, and Dan Orlovsky released news that he was the first player to leave practice and the last player to arrive, and then a day later sort of retracted that a bit, or said he got more information, and that may not necessarily be true. I'm talking about, of course, Justin Fields. News came out that he has some form of epilepsy, that it's never interrupted his football playing, and that doctors say that the seizures will probably never happen again or will recede. So it doesn't appear to be a big issue, but there's been all sorts of stuff regarding Justin Fields. One thing is undeniable about Fields is that he is a truly special athlete, and that he's played some pretty good quarterback for Ohio State, although the portfolio probably isn't as big as we would all love to see, but what he has put on tape is pretty dramatic. What have you seen and heard about Justin Fields?
Yeah, he's one of those, transcendent talents where he can everything that a quarterback could possibly do in any system. Justin Fields has the ability to do that. Zone read game, get outside the pocket, throw with accuracy, throw the deep ball. Like, he possesses every skill set imaginable. And my guy Dan, he's young. He's only been in the industry for a couple of years. I think he's starting to find out very quickly that not everybody has your best interests, at heart when they are giving you information, and sometimes even guys who most of the time do that. And there are narratives about quarterbacks every year, and we hear things that sound accurate. We hear things that sound a little bit crazy, and I think a lot of people do a lot of dirty tactics to try and sway, what the narrative is. And Justin Fields, I think, was a victim of that. I don't know why. Maybe a team wants him to slide to 6, and then, they put this information out. There are so many different possibilities. But I know you put on the tape against Clemson, the tape speaks for itself. I don't know what more you can do as a prospect. You go from Georgia to Ohio State, you run a system that is complex in the way you have to evaluate what a defense does post-snap, and Justin Fields does that very well. There's obvious flaws in everybody's game except for maybe Trevor Lawrence, just because you have to get really nitpicky to find holes in his game as a college prospect, But I think all these quarterbacks have an element of, yes, this is what they need to improve on. But if I'm starting with a blank slate and I'm going to add things to a prospect, I'm going to start with a guy who I think has the greatest potential. And outside of Trevor Lawrence, I think Justin Fields is probably that quarterback that I would say he has the most potential when compared to all. And the other guys are good, but I would put him, right below Trevor Lawrence.
Now, the two quarterbacks who the Bears potentially might have an opportunity to get. in my mind. This is how I read this. Not necessarily because I think any one of these two guys is going to fall to number 20, although Mac Jones, a lot of people have been saying that he could potentially fall to 20. But I think that the Bears are going to have to trade up to get any one of these top quarterbacks, first-round caliber quarterbacks in this draft. So talk to me about Trey Lance and Mac Jones, the two quarterbacks who could potentially be available to the Bears somehow, some way in this upcoming draft.
Yeah, I don't know if Trey Lance is going to be around that long. I mean, if he does start to slide, then I think the Bears are definitely one of those teams that would look at leveraging a certain amount of their future to try to go up and get him, because I think the Bears made the decision when we decided to, the Bears management said, we are going to keep Ryan Pace. We're going to keep Matt Nagy. We're going to try to see this thing through. They said the path that we're on, we feel like if we just can add XXX, and I don't know what that thing is. Number one on that list, though, I guarantee you, is quarterback. So if we can add a quarterback, we have an opportunity with the pieces that we have on this roster to try and win a Super Bowl. I would say that is a very optimistic view of what the Bears roster currently looks like, especially if you're going to plug in a rookie quarterback. I know rookie Justin Herbert, what he did last year, I mean, super impressive. We've seen rookie quarterbacks have success, but it's a lot to lead a team to a Super Bowl in that role as a rookie. But, Mac Jones, he's a guy who I think is probably – he can step into an offensive meeting room right now and he can speak all the lingo and he can understand the concepts, because what Steve Sarkisian did last year was masterful, especially at the college game. I mean, the concepts they ran were so complex, and I think Mac Jones has such an understanding of where to identify coverages, how to put your offense in the best possible situation based on what he sees defensively. And then he goes out and executes that. And he executes that really, really well. You probably would say Mac Jones' floor is maybe, a little bit higher than some of these, prospects that could potentially be first ballot Hall of Fame type guys. But there's some limitations to his game, especially, being adaptive, trying to, it's the unstructured stuff. I don't know how well he can do that. Even Matt Stafford, who's not a tremendous athlete, the unstructured stuff that Matt Stafford can do is really, really elite. And I don't think Mac Jones possesses those skill sets. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo possesses them, which is why you see him struggle at times when he needs to be the guy. And I kind of see Mac Jones in that same fashion. He could potentially turn himself into Tom Brady, where his ability to process is second to none. He is really accurate. He can make all the throws, so he could have success. And maybe it's just my personal opinion. If I can take a guy with this skill set, or I can take a guy with this skill set, if I feel like I can put a structure around them to have success, I'm going to take the guy with the bigger skill set. But Bears get Mac Jones. He fills a big time hole on that roster right now. And I would say, yeah, they're probably more competitive in the NFC North with him playing quarterback than Andy Dalton playing quarterback.
Now, out of the day two quarterbacks, and we got guys like Davis Mills, Kellen Mond, et cetera. Any of those quarterbacks have caught your attention, and you said to yourself or shared with others, this guy could be a really good developmental draft pick for the Chicago Bears?
No, I mean, Kellen Mond probably is the most intriguing, just because of the things that we spoke about earlier. Those unstructured abilities. I think there's such a premium on those as a quarterback, but it's tough, man. It's tough to win with those type of quarterbacks. Maybe you can develop them and put them in the right position, but if you look all around the NFL, Tom Brady is such a unicorn type of exception, where he had so much success as a 6th-round pick. It's hard. Russell Wilson was a 3rd rounder, but if Russell Wilson is 6'2", he's a top 10 pick. People just were a little bit afraid of where he was. Now, you don't really think about that. If you can get outside the pocket, Kyler Murray's 5'9", and he was the number 1 overall pick. So, it's tough to try and evaluate those guys, especially for me as like, if you don't have skill set as a quarterback that is different, it's hard for me to evaluate those guys. I never played that position. And I don't understand what it takes to every snap execute that. I would look for those guys who, hey, the skill set's there, right? If we compare their skill set to some of the top guys, they have that. Now, can we whittle everything else in what they do down to make them a complete guy? And it's just really hard to do in the NFL.
Let's get to some of the questions in the chat room. Ben says many mock drafts have the Bears picking a wide receiver in the first round. In fact, I saw a couple of mock drafts on the NFL Network today, and both of them had a wide receiver going in the first. Ben says, am I wrong in thinking an offensive tackle is the next need after a quarterback? Give Dalton more time. He can make more plays. Do you agree with Ben?
Yeah, for sure. I know the offensive line is a need. Offensive tackle is a need for sure. I think when you see mock drafts like that, especially if the Bears stick around, number 20, I think just the value of the receivers available probably exceeds the value of the tackles available. I think there are two really, really, Sewell from Oregon and the other guy's name escapes me. Rashawn Slater from Northwestern, who I think probably the best tackle. Like those guys are going to be gone by 20. So I think the value for tackle is not going to be there. But there are probably 6 or 7 receivers who will go in the first round, and you can get a guy with an elite skill set who had success in college, who you can project, to have success in the NFL at that number 20 spot. It's hard to. You either find a blue chip tackle or the value is better in the second, round or third round receiver. There are so many polished receivers now who can step onto an NFL field and pick things up from day one, especially right in the middle of that first round. I think that's probably why you see so many mock drafts moving in that direction.
Ravi says that he remembers you cracking dudes in the defensive backfield. And he also asks, can you, he says you were a part of some great defenses. What was so special about the cover two? And I think this is a great question because its popularity seems to be rising again. There seems to be a lot of defenses now that are moving to the cover two. Tell us what you thought was so special about the cover two, and what do you think the present fortunes, for so to speak, of the cover two are?
Man, we could probably do a whole show on the cover two, honestly. That'd
be cool.
Yeah, just because the detail to which we operated every week as a defense was so great. And I think it started with when Lovey got to Chicago, he and Jerry Angelo worked seamlessly together. Lovey identified exactly the traits he needed to run a cover two system, and Jerry and his department went out and found that talent, and it starts with 4 guys up front who are going to be disruptors in the backfield. And, this system was different than most systems you play in because, this was like a defensive lineman. They had 1 gap, go, disrupt, get in the backfield. Tommy Harris, the perfect 1 gap, 3 technique, built just like Warren Sapp, just as explosive as Warren Sapp. If he's healthy and if he stays healthy that whole year in 2006, there's no doubt that we are Super Bowl champs. I'm telling you right now, there's absolutely no doubt. And then you put all the other pieces around that front 4. Brian Urlacher literally changed what is possible for a middle linebacker, in a zone coverage system. His ability to run down the middle of the field, second to none in NFL history. And that's why, Leighton Vander Esch down in Dallas, he's a first-round pick because he looks like Brian Urlacher. Plays like him, same range. But you have Brian Urlacher running down the middle of the field. You take away some of the hash stuff that, hits cover twos. And then you have Lance Briggs as your will, who is responsible for, check downs. I mean, Lance Briggs was the best open field tackler in the NFL for 7 or 8 years in a row. Some of the tackles he made against LaDainian Tomlinson, Willie Parker, every running back in the NFL, he was one-on-one with 15 yards of space for them to operate, and he was able to make those tackles. So you have that second level, and then, you plug Nate Vasher and Charles Tillman in at the corner spots, two physical corners who can run, who can play, the deep thirds. And, I think Mike Brown, everybody knows Mike Brown, one of the smartest players I ever played with, and Chris Harris or Danielle Manning, whoever you want. The personnel fit the system so well. And then on a weekly basis, you can only attack a cover two, in certain ways. And we know exactly what ways you can attack it. So we were so prepared every week. Just we understood how we were going to be attacked, and then we just had to go out and execute. And we had a stable of guys defensively who participated in the special teams, who just understood, what the expectations were and how you had to success.
I've got another question about the teams from that era, but I want to get to this one first from Eric. A lot of people saying this is a great question, so I want to make sure you field it. Have you studied Eddie Jackson at all last year? Everybody here in Chicago saying, boy, he had this fabulous 2018 season, but he seemed to struggle last year. Everyone is hoping for a bounce back. They want to see the Eddie Jackson who was a ball hawk, who was making big time plays, whether with interceptions, tackles, fumble recoveries, and so forth. What can you say about Eddie Jackson's play, and what is necessary for him to return back to that Pro Bowl level?
Last year was kind of an odd year because guys didn't really have a preparation period. There were no OTAs, there were no mini camps. Training camp was very altered, and guys had to operate in that kind of all year long, in that bubble-ish situation. And I honestly think it was a lot for everybody to handle, to try to still go out on a weekly basis and perform to the level that you expected them to. It started to look better towards the middle and end of the season, but Eddie Jackson throughout his career at Alabama, with Chicago, I think he's proven to be a disruptor, a guy who creates takeaways. And last year he just, for whatever reason, just wasn't the same guy. I don't know if he was asked more, to do more from a leadership standpoint, or from an educating a young player standpoint, or being a leader on the field, making checks and things like that. I don't know those kind of inside the meeting room things that went down, but it just looked like he was a little bit off to me. And for whatever reason, I expect a bounce back. I expect him to get back to the Eddie Jackson who got paid a lot of money and was a Pro Bowler and one of the better safeties in the NFL. I'm hopeful for that. I think you have the structure in place to do that, and it's kind of my expectation that he gets back to that form that we're so used to.
Excellent. Let's talk about the 2006. You played all 16 games with the Bears that season. You had 21 tackles, a sack, forced fumble, 3 fumble recoveries, and you were a part of that Super Bowl team. I want you to share with us. I got a couple of questions regarding this. First of all, share what that experience was like for us fans.
I think that was the culmination of, that was my 4th season in Chicago. That was the culmination of, I think, a very solid nucleus of players who had been in place for multiple years, and kind of the perfect storm. You had Lovey come in, you had the cover 2 come in, you have our defense was tailor-made to run that system. We had so many, and that was my main role on that team. I was a backup safety. I played a little bit of nickel from time to time, but I was a special teamer myself. Todd Johnson, Leon Joe, Dante Wesley, Brendan Iambadejo. We had a roster of elite special team. Rod Wilson, who's an assistant coach with Kansas City now under Dave Towe. We had an array of talented special teams guys who that was our main role, and we took pride in that role, and we were one of the better units in the NFL. And throw back the best kick returner to ever do it in Devin Hester. That was a culmination of that, man. We loved each other. We really enjoyed playing with each other. In the locker room, we were friends. And we had such a blast playing together. And when Brian Urlacher is the leader of your unit, and he's fun to be around, he's a genuine person, he's giving. We would go to his house and we play paintball, we play poker, but he would never let anybody do anything. He was always the host, and he was gracious. when that guy's the example for everybody to follow, it's easy to have a team and a unit of guys like that. And that's what we were, man. We were really just friends. We enjoyed each other so much. And then we just go out and handle business, you know. Hey, it's us against them. We're better than them. Let's go handle our business. And that was our mindset. So it was a blast, man. It was so fun to share it with so many guys that, you know, the end of Dick Duran's tenure, to Lovey's tenure, you know, a lot of us were there through that. And for us to build something so special it was fun. I've never had as much fun playing the game of football than I did in 2006 season. And if anybody ever questions whether this is a Bears, Blackhawks, Cubs, Bulls, you know, White Sox town, let the Bears have some success. And I think that's answered really, really quickly, because everywhere we went, people were just happy. They were appreciative for the type of football we were playing. They were such huge fans. I mean, everywhere, suburbs, downtown, South Side, everywhere, people were excited about the Bears. And it was, you know, I love Chicago to this day. I'm going to be back there this summer. Like, my kids love going back there. My older daughter was born there. It's just, it feels like home. And Bears fans, you know, made us feel that in 2006. And, you know, memories that I cherish. I still talk to guys and we talk about some things that we went through, just, you know, lifelong memories that you make with a bunch of really high quality individuals.
I want to share a memory with you that was shared here on our Barroom Network from Thomas Jones. And when he did, I almost got tears in my eyes, because he talked about his personal performance in that game. And he had just gotten a huge run. I think it was an explosive play, a 40, 50-yard run and so forth. And then he came off the field and he knew that the next series was going to go to Curtis Benson. And he told his running back coach, and I'm paraphrasing here, and excuse me for swearing, but he says, "I'm feeling it. I'm in the zone. Don't fucking take me out of this game. Don't effing take me." He kept repeating the F word. "Don't take me out of this game." And lo and behold, he's removed from the game. Benson fumbles, and I still get chills when I recall the story. And it's for a lot of reasons. Number one, it's having empathy for the disappointment that you players went through at that moment and playing in that big game and it not happening. And it's the disappointment that we as fans, I mean, we live with this team every single day. I mean, the people in the chat room, they're here because they are diehard Chicago Bears fans. And so when he recalled that story, I was just really moved by it. And I want to ask you, you know, how devastating of a loss was that for you personally, particularly after what you just described of the camaraderie that you had with the players?
Yeah, man, I haven't heard that from Thomas, man. He's, I mean, one of the hardest working dudes I was ever around in any aspect of my life, especially in the NFL. The dude outworked everybody. Yeah, he was a first-round pick, but he outworked everybody. We'd be full pads, 2-a-day practices, and after that first practice, Thomas Jones would be in the weight room working out. And I was like, this guy is an absolute monster. I mean, and you look at him, and that's what he looks like, right? He's sculpted like a dude who does that nonstop. And he was a big emotional leader on that team. I mean, he drove us to be better, and to hear him, man, to hear him voice it. I know him. I know exactly what he's not an I guy. Thomas Jones is not a look at me person. I want the team to win. I'm going to do the best job I can do because I want the team to win. And if he's telling you that I'm feeling it, don't take me out, it's because you keep me in this game and we're going to be world champions. That's what he's telling you. So, you know, I know that they ran things the way they ran things on that side of the ball. And I agree with him, man. It's, man, if he would have had more care, we would, you know, we busted a coverage and we had a pick six, and that really was the difference in the game. Our game plan was executed just about to perfection, man, just about to perfection. We gave up one red zone touchdown. That was our goal. Let them move it with between the 20s. We make them kick field goals. But we give up 14 points that we just can't give up to win that game. And that was the difference. And a couple mistakes, and Peyton Manning was good enough. Dominic Rose was. We didn't care how many yards Dominic Rose ran the ball for. Reggie's not beating us, and Marvin Harrison's not beating us. And we did bust the one coverage that Reggie Wayne took advantage of, but they didn't beat us. They were not going to beat us. And if we had just not made those mistakes, then at least it's a close game, and maybe we make a play down the stretch, maybe they make a play down the stretch, but it doesn't turn into, I think, a 12-point loss, which is what it was. And I still have never watched that game. I've never watched the tape of that game. I really couldn't tell you all the happenings throughout that. And a lot of games in my career, I can go back to high school and I can tell you how the game flowed, but that one just, it started off on such a high. Devin takes a kick back. I run down. I make a kickoff on the next kickoff. I have to get oxygen because I'm just, I'm losing it, right? I'm so just fired up and tense. I really have to sit down and calm down. And then, the game kind of goes how it goes, and we're changing wristbands every possession because we're doing things by hand because Peyton, did the no huddle thing, and we weren't going to give him too much information. I remember things like that. I remember the week leading up to it. I haven't watched it, man. It's still, maybe I need to talk to a therapist to deal with it because I can't, it's 15 years now, or 14 years from the date, but it was a culmination of the professional lives of a lot of people, and a lot of hard work and sacrifice and tears and blood and, happy moments too, but there a ton of sacrifice. It takes so much to get to that point in your career with a group, especially that was as tight knit as we are. We all still feel that pain. And I rarely have conversations with teammates from that team where in some way, shape, or form, we don't reference, make a joke, talk about some aspect of losing that game. It's just, we were so good. We were the best team in the NFL that year. And it comes down to one game, and we didn't make the plays necessary to win. I think we all feel that. And someone like Thomas Jones had a tremendous impact on that season and had a tremendous impact on that game, period. For him to express that, man, it's a lot.
I mentioned that story to Alex Brown, the defensive end of the team, and he says, I love Thomas, but the defense lost that game because we let Dominic Rhodes run up and down that field. It was our fault. And so I think that just speaks to what you were talking about, is the team really looked out for one another and everyone had accountability and responsibility. That was huge of that team. Before I let you go, there's 2 or 3 other things I want to ask, and I keep getting asked in the chat room. Multiple people are asking for your evaluation on the defensive backs coming out of the draft for this for guys that the Chicago Bears should potentially look at. And of course, we lost Kyle Fuller, and so there is his replacement appears to be right now Desmond Trufant, the veteran cornerback who has played really good football during the course of his career, primarily with the Detroit Lions, but he has suffered some injuries the last 2 seasons. And then you got Jalen Johnson, who's going into his second year in the NFL, but he has coming off an injury and had an injury in college, a bad shoulder. So there's some concern now that your 2 starting cornerbacks are coming off of injuries. So what can you tell us of what you've seen or heard regarding cornerbacks in this upcoming draft? Anyone that you particularly think could be suitable for the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, I love Jalen Johnson, by the way. He's a Fresno dude, went to Central High School. I know he went to Utah, but, he's a Central Valley guy. Central Valley, California is home. So I grew up here, went to Fresno State, and it's where I decided to kind of plant my roots. So, guys from the Central Valley just have a little chip all the time. They play physical all the time. And, hopefully he can stay healthy, because I think the sky's the limit for him. Reminds me a lot of Peanut Tillman and how physical he is, how competitive he is, and kind of the size he brings to that position. And Desmond Trufant's a veteran. He's not a guy who you are expecting to be, a Bear for 5 years, but he still plays at a high level and can be competitive this year. The Greg Newsome from Northwestern, I think, is a perfect fit for Chicago. He didn't play a ton of press coverage at Northwestern. has a ton of zone, experience. I think he has all the physical tools to develop into a press man corner if you want him to be, but he's multiple and he understands the game. Pat Fitzgerald does one of the best jobs, I think, in college football, because it's hard to get into Northwestern and to get guys to buy into what you're doing there is difficult. And he's had so much success there. Every player that comes out of there is so prepared to be a professional. Like, I really like Greg Newsome. If the Bears, if he's on the board at 20, I mean, I think that's a guy that they really seriously consider, especially if there was a run on receivers. Our top 3 tackles are gone. We need a guy who can fill this position. I think that's a guy you look at. Patrick Surtain, I think, is gone. Before that, J.C. Horn from South Carolina. Probably, if I just put like the dude who I think is the biggest asshole at the position, it's J.C. Horn, and I mean that as a compliment. He wants to go shut people down every single week. That's his goal. He wants to shut you down and embarrass you, and he'll let you know about it. You love to have those type of guys on your roster at that position because it's tough. You get beat a lot. You give up touchdowns. It's on ESPN every weekend. You get exposed because you're one-on-one with the best athletes on the field. And he's a guy who can step in and do that. But, Greg Newsome, Farley from Virginia Tech, I think, is another big athletic prospect who is physical, who can play up in the NFC North. You have to have a physicality to play in that division because you're going to have to make tackles and you have to cover, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams. I mean, you have some really top flight receivers that you see twice a year. So those are some guys that could be available at 20. And like I said, Greg Newsome, if he's there at 20, I think the Bears have that conversation in the draft room.
Outstanding analysis. Before we let you go, I saw something on your Twitter account that I just have to bring up with you because I laughed so much and I want to share it with people. You said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, you said that you would like to do a PhD thesis on what is going on in this photograph here. And I am with you, man. This photograph should win awards, and there is a lot going on here. Besides the fact that this Brett Favre lookalike is getting hit right smack in the jaw with a baseball bat, and the child beside him is doing the right thing. I'm assuming that's a child. I'm not actually quite sure.
Right. That's a conversation right there. I couldn't tell if it was a child or not.
But that person is doing the right thing, keeping his or her eyes on the action and protecting his or herself at all times. I mean, this picture is outstanding. And then there's that child on the left there who wants to make a play on the bat. There's the guy that's ducking. There's the guy who appears to be just walking by and taking a look at where the bat's going to land. And then there is, of course, this woman who is just eating popcorn or whatever. Yep. So this is just outstanding. To your thoughts on this photograph?
Yeah, we could do a whole show on this photograph because there's the wide range of actions and emotions and thoughts. And my favorite has to be two. One, the redhead girl at the very bottom of the screen who just looks like she's she's thinking about whatever. She has no idea what's going on. She doesn't care what's going on. She's looking up in the sky and having some deep, conversations with herself at this moment. She's not affected by a wood bat flying by at, 75 miles an hour or whatever. And then the guy at the very top in the black shirt who is looking at the dude getting hit in the jaw like, I waited my whole life to watch this dude get hit in the jaw with a baseball bat, and now this dude's getting hit in the jaw with a baseball bat. Like, my life is complete. I'm so happy right now. And it just, it was a study in human interaction and emotion. And then, the majority of the story is how everybody is aware of this bat flying into the crowd, but the dude getting whacked with the bat in the jaw is apparently completely oblivious to it, because I hope he's okay. I haven't read anything to say he wasn't, but man, that's got to hurt and be embarrassing at the same time.
That is the funniest thing I've ever seen. And yes, I agree with you. I hope Brett Favre lookalike is fine and everybody else there is fine. But that is an incredible photograph. And thank you for posting that. That made, when I saw that a few days ago, I just kept thinking about it. I said, well, wait a minute. I'm going to have Cam on the show. I could ask him about it. So this is great. And you've been great to give us 45 minutes of your time. I know things are very busy for you right about now. Let everybody know what you've been up to. I know you've done some broadcast work. I know you're involved in a bunch of other things. Let everybody know where you're at and where they can find you to interact with you on social media.
Yeah, at Cam Worrell, and I know you posted it a few times. At Cam Worrell is the easiest place to find me on Twitter. That's where I'm the most active. I don't really mess with Facebook a lot, Instagram every once in a while, but Twitter, I love talking to Bears fans and listening to Bears struggles and just football. I use it mostly as an outlet for talking football, which is fun and X's and O's and whatever guys want to get into. I have a good time there. So at Cam Worrell, like I said, I moved back to Fresno after my third year in Chicago, made it home. I would come back to train anyway. It's a good place to raise kids. I have a sophomore daughter and a seventh grade daughter who are active in soccer and gymnastics and all the challenges that go along with being a father of two teenage daughters. I experience those on a daily basis, both positive and negatively. They're very rewarding and very challenging at the same time. I have a few different ventures going. I do some broadcasting with Fresno State and did some high school football on TV over the stream, which was just a blast. It's just fun to be around the game still. And I work with AstroTurf, the original, used to make the old nylon AstroTurf. Now it's much better. It's much softer. It looks more like real grass. So, so I've been with them for a couple of years. It's great. It's an iconic brand that I helped to develop in Northern California. My old Fresno State teammate and I, Sam Williams, we have a venture called First Down Ventures where we, kind of a fund in the venture capital space. And we've identified a couple of companies that have some value and kind of get into that. I'm 1 year away, 2 semesters away from finishing my MBA at Fresno State. Went back and got my sociology degree and just kind of kept it going. So, I have a little bit of ADD, so I try to, dip my toe in a few different waters, and it satisfies, some different interests that I have, and it's been cool, man. The number one thing I miss, and I get this question probably more than any other question, is what I miss most about the NFL. And my answer every time, and I assume if you've ever asked anybody this question, is you just miss being with the guys, right? You miss being with other people who are fully invested in the success of a team. You miss learning from some of the best in the industry, from some of the best teachers in the world. And you're just, it takes so much to be an NFL player or to be in the NFL period as a coach, as, someone in management. You have to be the very best at what you do. And when you're around an environment filled with people like that, you just become better in every aspect of your life. And that's probably the one thing that I miss. And that's why I try to continue to work. I was on a workshop today with Ryan Neese and Hunter Hillenmeyer and George Wrightster, Akbar, Baja Biamila, like just former athletes who, are still doing things and we can stay connected with. I always search for that. And, some of my more rewarding professional experiences have been because I team with guys who just think like me and have the same story and path. And we have kind of a unique perspective on how we view the world. And anytime you get to share that with people is super special. And I appreciate you reaching out and getting me on, man. I love football, and it's been such a huge part of my life. And like I said, my Facebook profile says Chicago is my hometown because, I went there as a 23-year-old individual who had never really spent any time outside of the state of California. And I grew up. I grew up as an individual. I had my first daughter, married my wife. I became an adult and I was embraced by the city. I'm just a special teams guy who works hard and tries to do the right things and tries to help a team win. And people would stop me on the street and tell me how much they appreciated watching me play. And I was like, what are you talking about? You know, I'm 20 snaps a game, 25 snaps a game at most. But Bears fans just appreciate guys who work hard and do the right thing and play hard for their city. And I felt like I was playing for every single person in the city of Chicago, every single Bears fan, every single week. And believe me, when it wasn't going well, they told you that too. but there's no greater love I've ever felt as an athlete than in the city of Chicago when the Bears are having success. It was a magical, magical time in my life. And, you know, that's why I love talking Bears football any chance I get. It just, you know, those memories are so great. And I owe so much to the city and the fan base. Man, reach out to me. If you're a Bears fan, find me on Twitter, reach out to me. You know, I'll follow you back. I'll have conversations. I love talking Bears football. So appreciate you bringing me on. This is an absolute blast.
Well, trust me, I'm going to bother you again in the future. So
you got it.
Back on. We've got a lot of football nerds working here at the Barroom Network who would love to talk cover 2 defense with you and talk about the games in the upcoming season. So I'll definitely do that. And I also, every time I interview a player, I like to express my appreciation for what you guys do as professional football players, the sacrifice that you put through, the mental and physical sacrifices that you put through, you know, obviously because you love the game, and it in most cases pays fairly well, but also for our entertainment. And anytime I see guys make money at this game, I don't begrudge that at all. I wish it was shared more with all of the players, because just what you guys do out there is just extraordinary. I've had the opportunity to see professional football players hitting each other in practice up close, and it's just amazing what you guys put your bodies through. And I will never, ever, ever begrudge any player because what you guys do is just tremendous. So thank you very much, Cam Worrell. For those of you listening on audio podcast, you can find Cameron Worrell on Twitter. It's at CamWorrell. And I'll be bugging him again, so he won't be a stranger to the Barroom Network. Cam, thank you very much again for being here.
Of course, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate the words too, man. It's nice to talk to people who just, you know, who understand there's sacrifice, not just our sacrifice, but our family's sacrifice. And, you know, we put it all on the line. And when it's appreciated, we can definitely appreciate that. So
there you go.
Thanks for those words.
You got it, man. We'll reach out to you soon. Thanks a lot. And I'll let everybody else know that we've got more to come up. I've got a couple of announcements of things. And those of you in the chat room, if you want to chat a little bit about football, I've got a few minutes. So let's go to this commercial break, and I'll be right back. DeepDishTees.com. DeepDishTees.com is where you can find all of the great Barroom Network t-shirts and hats, and t-shirts and hats from some of your favorite Barroom Network shows. DeepDishTees, TEES.com. Head over there now. Welcome back. That was a great interview with Cam Worrell. You know, I love talking to these professional football players, and there's some that I enjoy talking to even more, and Cam goes up on that list of special guests. It's just, you know, his story would be like so many of us other guys who just love the game of football. We know we're not going to be superstars at this game of football, but we play it with passion, just like we are as fans. You know, we play it with passion, and he stuck around a long time in the NFL because he worked really hard at it. And those are the kinds of stories that I love to share. And he knows football well. His analysis of those top quarterbacks and defensive backs coming out, I could have talked to him for another couple of hours. It was a lot of fun. I also want to let people know that this week is a very special week here at the Barroom Network. We've got coverage up and down, left and right. And tonight, after South Burbs Hitmen, our hit White Sox program, Danny Shimon and Neil are going to talk about safeties. If you've been following Draft on Tap this season, you know that every show they've taken a position group. It started with edge rushers. And then went to quarterbacks. It then went to running backs and so forth. Every show they have taken one position group and detailed some of the top players and some of the underdog prospects that they think, are guys we should be paying attention to. And some of those guys won't fall to the Bears, and even if they did, the Bears would not choose them because of need. But just evaluation on players that you really should know, but always also with the thing in mind of how they would fit with the Chicago Bears. So tonight at around 9:15, right after South Burbs Hitman, the guys will talk about safeties. It will be their last positional report, and then on Tuesday they reveal the big board. The big board where the top 100, 150 players are going to be on that board, and we'll talk about those guys. And there's also going to be some debate involved. Neil and Danny do not agree on all of these players and where they should be slotted. So you're going to hear those arguments right here on the Barroom Network. That's Tuesday night beginning at 8 p.m. Central. It's going to be a fascinating show. It's going to be a glimpse as to what has happened in NFL draft rooms throughout the country, all 32 cities. There have been scouts and general managers and player personnel, people who have just argued about where they should slot guys in. So this is going to be a fascinating discussion, and I'm going to sit back and listen, and then I am going to make the final decision as to what that draft board looks like, because again, if you've been following Draft on Tap, you know that the culmination of what we have been doing happens on Wednesday, when we hold our own Chicago Bears mock draft. Danny Shimon, our lead draft analyst at the Barroom Network, and Neil Stopchinski, now finishing his first full season of scouting for the Barroom Network. They are the player personnel guys, and I am playing the general manager. And so I will be making the decision on trades, on player selection, and you have it. They will be giving me the input, but I get to make the choice. And so that's going to be a blast, and I will be listening to what you guys will be talking. If you're going to be with us live, get your input, get your criticism, because I know you're not going to be happy with a lot of my decisions. So that's going to be a real fun show. The culmination of what we do here at Draft on Tap is Wednesday with the mock draft, and that is scheduled to start at 8 p.m. Then on Thursday, we've got first round coverage of the NFL draft. It's going to be anchored by John Buffone. And of course, Neil and Danny will be there to provide their evaluation of all the picks and so forth. I'll be behind the scenes taking care of all the special stuff. So my presence, you guys are going to be sick of me by the end of the week. My presence, hopefully you won't see my face too much on Thursday, but my presence will be there having a blast covering the NFL draft first round, the first time we've ever done it here on the Barroom Network. It should be a ton of fun. Again, John Buffone will anchor that. And then on Friday, we will have, after rounds 2 and 3 are done, we will be here live at the Barroom Network to talk about the Chicago Bears selections. And then on Saturday, after the draft, John Buffone returns to anchor a 1-hour review of the entire draft. He's got some very special guests planned for that show. And then on Sunday, after the Barfly Tailgate show, which is also going to be a special show because the Barfly Tailgaters are going to have hosts from all of our shows pop in and talk about the draft, share their thoughts. We've got a lot of guys like Vinny Parisi and Lara Golden who cover Blackhawks and Bulls respectively, but they love the Chicago Bears and they're going to share their points of view. We're going to have a lot of guests on that show. It's going to be a blast. If you saw last Sunday's show, you will agree with me that their discussions with guests is just fabulous. Those guys do a great job of interviewing multiple guests. And so that will happen Sunday morning. But then after that, the Draft on Tap crew returns and they will then do thorough analysis of every guy that the Chicago Bears have picked in this draft and some of the undrafted free agents as well. In fact, I asked the guys on Saturday we're going to have a 1 hour recap show that John Buffone is anchoring. I asked them not to be on that show, that on Saturday night, they're giving up their Saturday night to look at tape of guys who are the Bears are drafting in day 3, because a lot of times, nobody looked at Tariq Cohen's tape prior to the draft, right? Nobody did. If they say they did, then maybe they're lying. But so they're going to be pouring over tape. And then so on Sunday afternoon, we're going to have a very special draft on tap where Danny Shimon and Neil Stopchinski are going to provide their evaluations of the guys the Bears did draft. So that's going to be a ton of fun. How about that for a whole week of draft coverage here on the Barroom Network? I mean, there's so much going on. I probably left some stuff out. Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. Tomorrow, I've got another one-on-one interview. Let me get rid of this graphic because it's bothering me. We've got another one-on-one interview. Are you a Notre Dame fan? Well, you don't have to be. Nick Shipkowski is going to join us, and he and I are going to talk about the Notre Dame prospects who are entering the draft. So whether you're a Notre Dame fan or not, you should listen to this, because we know how the Chicago Bears like to select Notre Dame players. And so we'll talk about all of the big-name prospects and some of the lesser-known prospects tomorrow at 10 a.m. here on the Barroom Network. Oof, I'm tired just talking about all this stuff. But I've got one other announcement to make. Today, we have officially changed from the Bears Barroom Network to the Barroom Network. And that's because we've changed our strategy over the last year, where we are now covering all of the major Chicago sports, the Blackhawks, the Bulls, the Cubs and White Sox, the Chicago Sky. We're looking to do more work about the WNBA team here in town. We're looking to cover all of the major sports. We've talked about even doing a show on the Chicago Fire. I want to cover it all because the strategy of the Barroom Network has shifted, where we're now becoming Chicago's sports station, an alternative to the terrestrial radio stations and some of the other podcasts in town. I'm not saying that we're competing with them. Absolutely not. They have their place and they do things better than we will ever do, but we can be an alternative and provide you with lots of great programming. So if you've noticed on our Twitter account, we're no longer at Bears Barroom. We are at Barroom Network. That sign will always stay up on that wall as long as it works. And maybe even after it doesn't work, it's a gift from many of the barflies and people who worked here at the Barroom Network. My tattoo of Bears Barroom, that's never going to change. Trust me, that's not coming off. And so that brand is still very, very special to me. And I want to thank all of the people who have helped to build that brand and get us up. Everyone from Draft Dr. Phil and Shane Marsaw. We had a very successful run on the Bears 100 Proof Show, to lots of other people who are no longer with the network. But especially I want to thank the people who are still with the network, who are joining the network, who are building the Barroom Network into a very, very special brand. And hopefully we are doing stuff that you guys like, and will tell your friends, family members, to give us a try, because we might just well be something that they'll like. Some comments here. Ravi says, I used to follow your boy Roy a long time ago, and then I found Barroom when it started. Your boy Roy, I'm not sure I know that, but thank you very much, Ravi. Ravi's been a long time, I should say, fan. The Factor is in agreement, 100%. Lots of love coming our way. Herney777 says, thanks, Aldo. You're very good at what you do. Thank you, Herney. I really appreciate that. The Factor adds, Aldo, hopefully one day you can collaborate with the Tape Never Lies. Never say never in our business. And that's about it. I just want to let you guys know of all the cool changes that are happening here, and let you also know that this is the week, man. If you're a Bears fan, Shane used to say this is like Christmas week, and he is absolutely right. I feel that way. Danny and Neil, all their hard work is going to bubble up into fruition, and we're going to have some great talks. John Buffone will be doing a lot of the anchoring on stuff, the Barfly tailgate shows. And to give you a for instance about how football it permeates through the Barroom Network, Vinny and Joey, who co-host the Bar Down Blackhawk Talk show on Wednesday at 2 p.m., they're going to talk the Bears draft. They separate their show into periods: first period, second period, third period. Well, in the overtime period, they're going to talk about the Bears draft and share some thoughts about what they think the Bears could potentially do. And then there is, of course, my great friend, my business partner, Mike North. He will be here Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Not only is he going to give you a winning betting tip or two, but he's going to talk about the Bears. He loves to talk about the Cubs and White Sox. He's the raging mouth of Chicago sports, Mike North. He'll be here Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. and we do it live. That's it. That's what I got for you. Thank you all for watching this show live. Let people know about us, and we'll be back soon. We'll be back tonight with the South Suburbs Hitman.